Hi, Tricia. Welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I am very excited to speak with you today.
Great being here. I appreciate your time.
So when we initially were debriefing before the show, what really stuck out to me was the specificity of your marketing questions and how and why a podcast would be used for a brand, which immediately clicked for me that you have a very extensive marketing background and knowledge set. Can you tell us a little bit about your marketing background and how you got to National Cyber Group and what exactly your role is and day-to-day looks like?
Sure. I actually started off thinking I was going to be a journalist and somehow wound my way into the marketing world,
Mm.
trying to use the communication skills in a professional setting. So my entry was into the mostly technical side of technical businesses, automotive, and then I moved into Learning Tree, which is tech ed. And then that obviously led naturally to where I am today, which is a quasi startup. I call it a quasi startup because the Total Seminars is part of the equation. CyberNow Labs is part of the equation. Those were existing businesses that
Mhm.
we've now brought on under one umbrella called National Cyber Group. And of course, what we're trying to accomplish there is solve our nation's problem of a cybersecurity workforce gap that is quite large. And we don't have enough people entering that field to cover what's happening there. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to be in trouble, because if we don't recognize that that actually is a war that's happening, it's a digital war.
It's
Uh,
scary.
yeah, right. We're going to lose, and sticking our heads in the sand about this isn't going to make it go away. So we have to do something, and then it's a serious mission. But at the same time, it's a mission to help people who maybe are underserved populations to have a career path that never maybe would have even thought for themselves,
Mhm.
never would have even thought it was available to them. So we have people going through this program now that are Uber drivers, they're veterans, they're stay-at-home moms, they're teachers that are disillusioned with that career path. So being able to tap into a much larger portion of society and helping them get into a high-paying career that also solves a nation problem sounds like a good deal, right? So my day-to-day though in this quasi startup is uh I'm a department of one-ish. I'm doing a lot myself. So what that does is sort of stretch my capabilities and pushes me in directions or deeper into marketing that maybe in places that I haven't had a lot of depth before. So that allows me to either trial and error, or
Mhm.
pull in Fiverr contractors to get help where I can, and of course rely on the leadership team for any of their experiences and know-how. So that's what it's like in my current world.
And what's your official title?
I am the director of marketing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We actually interviewed, his name's Michael Bailey, and he works at Proofpoint.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with their brand?
Oh, absolutely. We just put out a video content today with showing people how Proofpoint helps with phishing, detecting
Mm.
phishing emails, and
Oh,
so
so you really know their brand.
yeah, I do. I do. So that's one of the technologies that's part of our program. So going through our program allows people to experience all of the technologies that they will when they get inside the job.
Mhm.
So they really are able to walk in day one and be, contributing to the team and having an impact on the business. So
And the reason I brought that up is that we had a really good conversation around the utilization of, fear and hope and their marketing at Proofpoint. And this is such a scary industry. It's not like you're selling ice cream, which is just all happy, So from a messaging standpoint, how do you balance that of, speaking realistically that this is war, this is scary, while also there's a lot of hope in your brand of providing high income and jobs to underserved communities?
yeah, that's an interesting dance, isn't it? Because we're either
Mhm.
solving for pain or solving for pleasure. And in this case, we're trying to do both. And I'm trying to sort through how you put out the right messaging. And I think maybe that's partly the platforms that you
Mhm.
use to reach people. I think social media seems like a good platform to get into communities, but then that only goes so far. I really think community-based marketing is going to be important to us to go where they are. And if they're not, if they're not in the social platforms that we're choosing to play with, then we're not reaching them the right way.
Can you elaborate on that of where are your people then and how are you reaching them?
Yeah. So, I mean, so where are veterans? They're not on necessarily, I would say, on LinkedIn. They're not probably even on social media very much at all. So where are they? They belong to member groups that the VA sponsors. So do they have events? Do we have to go to events to reach that audience? Do we have to get in front of their benefit packages so that we are a valid option when they go to look at, I need a career or a new career. So I think that's where my definition of community-based marketing is, where you have to go where they are. And it's different for our target audiences. So you've got veterans, you've got immigrant populations that can work in the United States, you've got the stay-at-home moms, you've got the retail workers. Where they all live is all different. So there is no one size fits all, as in anything in marketing. I don't think that's true, these days. It's no longer put out a radio ad or a television
Right.
ad and call it a day. So it gets trickier. And where I think we can be scale our outcome is by getting testimonials of the people who have gone this path already,
Mhm.
and being able to show that in whatever communities or platforms that they are in. So that much more of seeing themselves as that outcome. And then on the opposite end, it's playing the fear side to the organizations that aren't doing enough to invest in
Mhm.
education. They want to throw technology at the problem and think that's going to solve it. But it's people that run the technology, and it's people that look at the information and decide whether there's an issue. So if we're not investing in the actual education behind those tools, you're not going to be successful. It's a three-legged stool. You got people, technology, and processes. And
Mhm.
we seem to want to solve it with technology. And you can see how well that's going. Just like look at any headline at any day of what breach happened, I guess the issue is we as citizens haven't figured out that has an impact on us. It seems not part of my world until it happens to me, right? A phishing email, okay, yeah, you know about it, but until it happens to you, you kind of go about your day. And does it change your behavior? Are you more cautious? That all depends on how well the education is happening inside your organization.
There were two marketing terms and strategies you mentioned. They're both for a split second, but I want to revisit them because they're very key components of marketing. I'd love for you to share how you're utilizing both of these at National Cyber Group. The first was you mentioned split testing.
Yes.
The second was testimonials. You shared a little bit more on that of how that's used in your storytelling, but I'd love for you to share how both of those concepts are being used at National Cyber Group.
Sure. So split testing, everybody should be doing that. And if you're not doing that in marketing, you're not
You might
serving.
not be a marketer.
Yeah, you might just be asked to do the function, but not know what you're doing, because that's how you get metrics, and that's how you get anything that gives you a positive way forward of scaling your efforts and getting better results. So that seems like a duh, but I guess that should be said out loud. And I try to do A/B testing. It is challenging all the time if you don't have enough content to do the A/B testing well, and to continue the A/B testing, because obviously you can start with a test if you have two good pieces, but then what happens once you have a winner? That doesn't mean you're done with the A/B testing. It means now you challenge that winner against something else, and you keep going down that path.
I interject real quick.
Sure.
Are you split testing not only your digital efforts, but some of your offline mediums as well? Or is it more just digital is where your split testing is taking place?
It's more digital right now, because that's where the biggest lever that we can pull in terms of trying to scale our efforts and get the people into the programs. So the programs are cohorts, right? So it's sort of like a higher education, they're semesters basically. And so we, pulling that lever at certain times to get enough volume to flowing into each of the cohorts. So digital still feels like the primary place to start. And remember, I'm quasi startup. We're just past 90 days into this. So I'm using what I can that's right available to me.
Mhm.
But I do know that we have to get into more, as you described, offline, which I would call that in-person type of events and into the communities that we're trying to serve. The other thing about A/B testing, so I'm doing that in all the digital, but you need to do that with content too. And right now I'm scrambling to get all the content in place to be able to do that effectively. But both in organic and paid. So right now my primary investment is on social media platforms, organic and paid. I'm not even in the world of Google Ads. That I don't think that our product lends itself well, and I'm not even trying to compete with the hyper competitive space of cyber on paid ads. So in that realm, so that I'm just not even playing there right now. Plus I have the disparate sites, I've got 3 different brands trying to pull them all together. So there's a lot going on in that quasi startup role. So I'm just trying to, again, use what I can. And I do have I set out a lot of content because of the total seminars, and Mike Myers, in the IT world, people know that name. They've been putting out content for years on IT certification. So he has his own brand and personality. So luckily I have a lot of good tools at my disposal to spin out that content. So as we mentioned earlier, when you talked about Proofpoint, we took that technology, we sat Mike down with the SOC director in our program, and they just went back and forth, asking questions and getting into the how-to. So now we're going to present an A/B test of a day in the life of a cybersecurity analyst. That's another way to do a testimonial, right? It's just a different way presentation style. So that's another way you can do it. It's taking the same kind of content and putting it in a slightly different presentation style and testing that and seeing how that works. So I'm definitely a test bed right now is what I would say. And hopefully that's gets you enough of unless you have more questions, you want to dig deeper into that.
I have another question, and it's going a little bit of a different direction. So whether it's been at your current organization or in your previous work history, as I know right now it's a one-person department, can you talk about, as a marketer, how to collaborate effectively with other departments, whether that's the R&D team reporting up to a CEO, maybe it's a team reporting into you?
Yeah, I would say my experience as I moved up the chain required me to continue to adapt my style, so that I could get more the proper reactions from people up and across and down. And that definitely gets more challenging the higher up you go. To me, as a leader, the more hands-on I was, the better I think the result was, because I didn't sit in an ivory tower, and I would be able to respond to whoever the stakeholder was that was trying to get an answer or a direction. And it felt like, to me, I kept my hands-on approach throughout all of my levels, which of course has served well in this current scenario where I am a department of one-ish. But what I would say is I also learned how to sort of reframe things as questions. So when you're trying to give anybody information that they know it might be unpleasant, they don't want to hear it, they're challenging you on it, the more you reframe things as questions, which then is in one way giving them the response, but it's much less, it pulls down defenses basically. And in any organization where you have all of those stakeholders to try to bring together, that felt like a useful tool of the question and versus you're wrong and this is how it should be, or trying to do the more direct route tended to not work as well as one might hope.
What about in your communication with CEOs? What have you found to be effective ways to get on the same page or even enroll CEOs in your ideas?
And that has changed, of course, depending on the CEO style, right? And in my last career, or job that I changed, that the CEO changed was like 5 times.
Mm.
And so that makes for an interesting experience as well, because just when you think you've got your groove with the CEO, and then somebody new comes in and they have obviously different ideas. They might even want to bring in different people, and now you have new stakeholders involved. And so what serves to be most effective, I think, is regular communication. So one-on-ones even, so
Mm.
that you can get on the same page and learn the lingo of each other. So we did have a lot of one-on-one time, for him to be able to ask, drill down, and not have to do it in front of other people. So that also
Mhm.
saves face in front of the organization of, he might not know, and I have to help explain.
Can I
Uh,
ask a question within that? I've heard this from a lot of people of the CEO is really just wanting to understand what's going on. And it's almost like the longer you keep them in the room asking questions, probably the more engaged they actually are. They just need to know the answer. So how can you as a marketer, stand firm in your beliefs, not lose your confidence, and have that good dialogue with the CEO in those conversations?
Data. I mean, in the end, data is what helps you maneuver around any, but my opinion versus your opinion. So the more data that you have to back up any statement and have it at the ready. So I found myself always having to I have like 10 reports open at any given time in case he asks this question. So that's what I got used to, is just having all my dashboards at the ready, so that when he starts going a level down, you can still stand your ground. And that, I think that's important. And the data should be there, but it should be in a way that you can explain it to somebody who doesn't live it the way you do, and who is being exposed to it at the beginning, and then they start to understand things, and then they start to bring more to the table. So that's the good part of getting them through that education process.
Can you tell us about a marketing opportunity that you're currently pursuing?
Marketing.
Opportunity at National Cyber Group that your team is pursuing. Maybe I'm giving, this is probably not the example, but maybe you're pursuing TikTok because you think your audience is over there. What's an opportunity that your team is pursuing?
Let's go after TikTok, because this is
Sure.
perfect for the cybersecurity world. Okay, so TikTok, on one hand, of course, is maybe even surpassing Google in terms of how people use it for search engine, which is to me insane, because there is no control over the content or any type of vetting any of the content. It's anybody on the street putting out whatever they want. And hello, we're feeding the information directly to China. And so if you have any concerns about your privacy, clearly you don't care if you're on TikTok and pursuing it that way. So every time we get with the cybersecurity professionals, they are completely wanting to turn off, shut down TikTok in the United States.
You think it will happen?
That's how serious they are. I don't know how much, it depends on how much pull that it's very egregious. It's direct connect, right?
There's
We're
going to
all,
be a lot of heartbroken teenagers. My mom writes for the athletic paper, and she recorded this video with a bunch of the football players asking, like, "What's your favorite social media channel?" And in unison, they all said TikTok without
of
even
course,
blinking.
of course, but they also have no idea that they're
Right.
exposing themselves, they're putting themselves at great risk.
Mhm.
Um, so there are some things you can do on any social platform. You don't give out as much of your personal information, but again, like you said, you described that same age group, it doesn't seem to care.
Right.
And it's kind of, I don't, we have, that's an education issue, or it's a turn it off issue, right?
Mhm.
Because it's kind of crazy. Um, but at the same time, of course, as a marketer, I love that campaign TikTok taught me. And I would love to put real actual learning content into
Mhm.
that. But I think there's a huge resistance in our space to leverage that, but then we're missing out on the opportunity. It's a catch 22. I don't know how to, I don't know how to resolve that in my own mind of whether we should go after it. But if we do, I'm sitting with Mike Myers, who's very well known, who is a very entertaining personality. So we could do tech talk on TikTok, right? And here we just set him up in front of a camera and let him go. That would be an amazing content channel, but you'd have to churn out a lot of content for that to have meaning. And that's the problem with everything. All of these social, for sure. It's all about content, and
Right.
it's constant, and you have to keep feeding the beast.
Right. Right. I want to hear a little bit more on your customer journey flow for, that Uber driver who you want to work in cybersecurity. What is that process like from seeing your brand for the first time to deciding to, pull out the credit card and work with you?
Yeah. And by the way, every Uber ride I get into, I'm like, so are you happy with your career
Oh,
path?
that's a great, if you had some grassroots marketing, just recruit a bunch of college kids and yeah, send them on their way and take Ubers.
I think it's brilliant every sinil ride. And so I've handed out a lot of business cards that way. And it seems to resonate because they end up taking that job because they can't find what they're really wanting to do. Right. So they usually have skills beyond that. And they definitely are interested in trying to get into a more lucrative career path. So that would be an interesting way to kind of explode or scale that grassroots idea. But taking that same group, the Uber drivers, they if you are able to, the awareness is the first challenge, right? So it's you're going through the traditional funnel approach.
Right.
The key, it just like recruiting in any college or technical school, you got to get them to the table to listen to your pitch. And we do those these days through webinars, right? You don't actually have to go visit the college campus kind of routine. So, getting those people into those free sessions where you give them the pitch, they can ask their questions. You can go, then they're starting to ask better questions. Now they're a more informed audience. And then you can continue nurturing them through additional content that would show them, again, this day in the life of what it would be like as a cybersecurity analyst. So, and by the way, that's the foundational role in cybersecurity, and it has the most open positions. So that's why our business model is focused on that track right now. So traditional funnel approach, get them into the info sessions, nurture them after the fact, use the early bird sign up to get them to sign the actual application. They have 2 weeks then to trial and make sure that this is still something that is interesting to them. So that helps alleviate some of the fears of, am I sure I can do this?
Right.
But to this point, though, I think one thing we're missing, and one thing I'd love to be able to get into our budget process. I think if we had at the top end and the awareness and moving them through, the more informed, and now they're doing comparison, is an assessment tool, because. And in a gamified assessment tool, because we're in cybersecurity, so it should be cool, like that's like a war game. But it would, I think, if the more that we could do that and get people comfortable and help them when we give them the results of their game, to be able to say, yes, I scored well, I feel like I should continue, or I didn't score well, so maybe I should play again. And if I play again, I get served a piece of content that helps me learn along the way. So we could be, continually keeping people in the top part of the funnel instead of just losing them, right?
Right. Can I ask a follow up to that? As a few days ago, I interviewed the CEO of a company called Bigger Pockets. They're a real estate training firm. And so he was saying when they did their avatar work that I forget the name of their avatar, but it's like, Bob spends an hour, or he spends a year in our ecosystem just consuming our podcasts, our blogs, our content until he's ready for his first real estate investment. And we don't really like push him and make hard sells in that year, we're just flooding him with content all the time so he can get acclimated, so he feels comfortable making a real estate purchase. For you, maybe has it still a newish brand, you don't have data like that, but you were just hitting on it, the importance of that education process and how you can't force some of these buying decisions. And sometimes with your products, it's not like you're spontaneously buying a sandal on Amazon. There's a lot of other things to consider here. And just, can you elaborate on that education process and why it's so important for brands?
Well, and because you asked the question this way too, I didn't wake up one day as an Uber driver and decide, well, maybe I'll go get a career in cybersecurity. Like that is a large leap. So I do think that education process has to occur, because if we're going through all the effort to getting people interested enough, let's say, to attend one of those, the webinars, and then they decide it's not for them. We don't want them to go away. We don't want to send them packing. We need a way to keep that circulation of funnel happening, because then it's not wasted effort and resources and dollars. And what's happening to them too in the education process is that might be a timing issue. You never know what the real issue. There's a lot of issues of why they might not have signed up right now. So you the more data you have about that, of educating them, is if they are qualified and the time just wasn't right, you continue to engage them with content that will make sure that they don't become disinterested until they're waiting till their time to engage. You still try to encourage, obviously, the sign up, the application, just like in the college world. Okay, we can defer you for 6 months, but go ahead and sign up now if you've made it this far, versus the other people that really just need more overcoming their fear of, I don't think I can do, this seems overwhelming, the overwhelming aspect.
That's a really good point. I was thinking about this too, of what's the main objection you're hearing from someone who doesn't purchase? Is it because they're looking at competitors and shopping around? Is it price? Is it just fear and lack of confidence? Like what are you seeing in your analysis of why people don't purchase?
It's more of the fear, because
that's what I was guessing. I didn't think they were shopping around like multiple cybersecurity training companies.
Yeah, they're not even at that. Well, they eventually get to that phase. And so when they do get presented with the catalog and the pricing and what their financing options are, then they do their homework. I mean, I guess they are doing some homework before they even come in there, because they'd have to go, what is this at all? And so the pricing is not right up front. That is not the issue. The pricing, in fact, because once the pricing is addressed, we are the best value on the market, because we're going after the accessible and the big audiences of underserved populations. So we're wanting to do quantity over trying to, double charge. I mean, everybody else in the market is double charged, and they don't have all of the same features and benefits. So, I mean, that's why it feels like we should be able to scale this. This feels like this should be a easier equation than I've ever been handed in my marketing career. So kind of looking forward to seeing what's going to stick.
I have a few last questions, and what was coming up for me is it was a book I read called The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang, and he was talking about he used the example time and time again of truck drivers and how they're going to be displaced from their jobs because of autonomous vehicles. So are those some of the communities as well in professions looking, a decade ahead and thinking, truck drivers aren't really going to be a thing in 10 years and they need to transfer their skill set to cybersecurity? Is that part of what your thought process is?
Well, the interesting part is because of this role that we're talking about, you do not have to have an IT background. You don't. You can be taught all of these skills if you're not afraid of technology, because you obviously will be exposed to many different tools, and Proofpoint being one of them. I think they fall into the same category of, and I'm back to my assessment tool. If they could play this game and see what kind of things they might be addressing, that would help any audience who doesn't see themselves as necessarily having transferable skills. So right now our message is you do not have to have an IT background. Does it help? Does it make it the first part of the program probably a little easier? I'm sure yes. But so nothing about this is easy. That's the other thing. This is not an easy transition. This is a challenging career path. But you will be handsomely rewarded in your salary. And then you're going to have, the sky's the limit in terms of upward mobility. Because this career path is not going away. It's going to only, it's evergreen, right? We're going to be under attack forever by people who are doing it ethically and people who are bad actors. So I think, any underserved population, like you just described, if I could get them into the assessment environment and help them self-select versus trying to pull them to the table, I think that's where I feel like and I sound like a broken record inside my organization right now, where every time they ask, what one thing could we do? And I'm like, get me a gamified assessment tool. So now we've got a proposal document where I'm going to pitch it and I'm going to show them all the numbers and why I think so. So now our ideas are, because this is a startup, we've got a lot of ideas. We've got a lot of people with good backgrounds and, so now we're going to compete.
So my last question today is, what is the best purchase you've made for under $100 personally or professionally in the last 6 months, and why?
So this is a very recent story, actually, and I've been working a lot of hours in the startup. So when I get to spend time with my friends, we had just like a birthday celebration a couple weeks ago, and they'd all been talking about the whole Johnny Depp scandal. So I got us all a T-shirt that says Mega Pint. And so now every time we get together, we can wear our Mega Pint T-shirts, and we're like a girl gang for Johnny Depp.
I love it.
They were like $20 a piece, so that was cool.
You're the first person who has bought T-shirts to form a girl gang for that answer. So congrats. So it was so nice to speak with you today. Really enjoyed this conversation. Before you leave, can you just give a shout out to, any websites around your organization if someone wants to learn more, or social channels?
Great. Yeah. I mean, nationalcyber.com is the easiest one, which branches off to all of our other brands. Cybernowlabs.com is the actual academy. So that's the training portion of the program they would go through. And I forgot to mention one little thing. One key differentiator too about the business model. Going through this program, I mean, there's a lot of training options out there, right? How many of them do you come out with actual real experience to put on your resume and support getting your job? So I feel like we have something really unique to bring to the market, and testimonials are my best friend in that assessment tool. And I give me those three things, and I'm going to make this work.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.